Hey everybody, welcome back to an episode of The Why presented by All American Roof Pros and All American Heart Studios. Today I'm sitting down with someone that I call a friend in Christ, a friend in general, and I'm super excited to learn more about his story as we walk into sharing that, and that's Mr. Anthony Violi. Anthony, I always tell everybody at the beginning, give me your elevator pitch. Tell me who you are and what you do and why you're here.
My name's Anthony Violi. I'm here because I came up to Ohio to help my mother. My mother was going through some surgery about 6 months ago, and my sister thought it would be a good idea that I come up to be with her during her time of need. Was concerned that we weren't going to have our mother around for a while or for how long, and she thought it'd be a good idea to at least give our mother that comfort of having all of her children around her. So that was my reasoning for coming to Ohio. I have been in Florida, for the past 20 some odd years. I was married. I have 3 children. I have 6 grandchildren. And I, came up here for my mother. And now that I've been here, I decided that I might want to make this my home because of a lot of things that I've seen. And then I started looking for jobs and things like that. And when I started looking for jobs, I had a lot of opportunities there. But I also noticed that certain interests and things that your company, during my interview or during our first conversations on the telephone and things like that, you threw me curveballs that I'm not used to hearing from employers. And they were true value type questions. They were true value type things that you stand on, and you weren't afraid to bring them all up, and it set me back for a minute, and I wanted to know a little bit more about it, because you got my interest. And so, although all different companies offer all kind of different programs and things like that, you were straight and to the point, and you told me that it wasn't about the money with us. We're here to help people, and when you help people and you do the right things, the money will come. I've never lived my life on those terms, and I wanted to be a part of that. So that's part of why I'm here.
Cool, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's super nice. I was just thinking. Do you remember our first conversation? Do you know what I was doing during our first conversation?
I know you were on the road one time. But I don't remember what you were actually doing.
I was actually moving the trusses from here to Brandon's house on the gooseneck trailer. So it was a big old mess, and we got it all situated. But yeah, it was. I remember that pretty vividly. It was like, this old guy wants to talk to me, but I got crap that my brother's asking me to do. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty cool. But to walk me through, so like, you're an older fella. You got your dog years out of you and all that good stuff. But like, kind of walk me through what life has been like for you up until this point. What obviously you got led here because your mom, a lot of your family's here. But where'd you grow up? I guess would be my bigger question.
I guess I can say that I was like a military child. Growing up, my father was in the military. Then him and my mother split when I was only 3 years old. So I basically grew up with my grandparents because my mom went on and my father went on his own direction. And my grandparents wanted my mother to leave me with them so that they can raise me so that she wasn't taking me all over the place. I was too young to understand that, but, now that I'm older, I look back on that and, I see that, how beautiful my grandparents were, to do that. And, it meant a lot to me. And, although I believe, I was mad at my parents growing up, because I didn't understand the split and leaving me behind and stuff like that. But it's a beautiful thing because I've learned so much and I value a lot of the things now, looking back, that my grandparents taught me. And, a lot of times things at the moment don't make sense, but then down the road, all of a sudden you get a revolution and wow, now I understand what they were talking about. So, that was the younger part of my years. Then my
Where
mother,
was that at?
that was in Killeen, Texas,
Okay.
which is by Fort Hood.
I wouldn't have put you up for a Texas guy.
I'm not. I'm Italian. With my father's Italian. My mother's half Italian and Spanish. So I'm not 100% Italian. But I was raised. Well, not really raised, but I have that New Jersey, New York background through my father and his side of the family, because periodically I would be with them throughout the years. Then my mother remarried into the military again, obviously because living in Texas, right by the Army base, I guess that's the big thing for women back in the day. They would not. The big thing was marry a military man. So then they got deployed to Germany. My grandfather thought it'd be a good idea if I went, but I was in like my 12, 13 years of age around that time, and going to a new country and all that was, different. It was scary, but and a lot to learn.
Did you learn any German while you were there?
I learned how to order food, which was, as you can see, my favorite thing. So yeah, I wasn't there long enough to pick up the language, but I did pick up a little bit, because you do have to pick up some words to kind of survive. The good thing about it is the German community, I guess they were welcoming Americans at the time, because we were there to help, from what I understand now. And most of them spoke English because they wanted to interact with the Americans. And I guess the big thing is they wanted American cigarettes. So, but it was a learning experience for me over there, dealing, we lived outside of the base. So we lived in the German economy. So I was around more German people than around the base, because you had to wait for housing to get on. And finally, when we got on, it was just like, it wasn't what I was expecting, and I wasn't happy there. I got in a lot of trouble because of my little brother. My little brother liked to run his mouth, and I got beat up all the time because of my brother. So, and over there, when you have Army kids, there's a I don't want to sound what you call it racist or anything, but there's a lot of different ethnic groups, and basically we were on the short end of that. So a lot of kids, they come in groups and they try to come at you, and so I dealt with that a lot.
I think kids are just mean in general. They try to pick on people for things that aren't like them, right? So
that's a bit.
I mean, that's just. I think the more parents should take more disciplinary action to make people understand we're all the same people, right? But yeah, I don't think it's racist. I think that there's naturally cliques that we fall into, or ethos, or ethical backgrounds. We're going to want to relate to the people who are like us, right? So I don't think there's anything there as far as that goes. So you spent some time in Germany, and then.
But touching back on that, as me having kids and watching them grow up, now the society looks at things as called bullying and things like that. So I guess that's
a version of what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
at the time it didn't look that way to you. It was like, why is this kid picking on me because I'm different, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was there in Germany. Didn't like it, so I got in a lot of trouble there and stuff. And then that's I was going to cause problems for my stepdad because when they're responsible for their families, and if you cause problems, you can lose your rank. And so my mother had to decide for me to come back to the States, and so that's when I came to live with my father in New Jersey. So that's when I grew up there with my father. He's taught me his business even when I was a kid. When I was in Germany, I was able to get my license when I was 15 years old over there. So I actually had a driver's license at a young age.
Just a German driver's license.
Exactly. But it was international.
Okay.
So I was able to drive here, and my father put me right to work because he had an auto transport company. So, I was working and going to school, but he was trying to teach me how to make money. And, that's one of my shortcomings too, because as good as it is to have money and learn the value of money when you're a kid, I believe money became my God.
Yeah.
And that's where I started going in different directions in my life, because I was chasing the money, and I saw the money my father made, and I wanted to have that too. And being in New Jersey, most of the families up there, there's a lot of different things, different ways of life up there. And most of the families or the children that I went to school with, they all had more than us, even though my father had a lot, and so it was always, it was always different, even no matter where I went, I just felt like I was, always struggling and fighting and trying to, get ahead. And, I guess that's what made me, I don't know,
built the drive inside of you, put a fire in your belly. The adversity when we see, because like now at this point in my life, not to shine light back on me, but like we didn't grow up like poor per se, but we didn't grow up really well off by any means. Like we always had what we wanted, but we always strive for more. Now I've kind of realized that if we try to compare ourselves to other people, like there's always going to be someone better, right? That's just kind of a realization I've come up with in life.
Right.
But I think that growing up with less than is a better situation. And like, that's a struggle that Tori and I are in with our kids now. Cause like, we're doing okay. But like, I still want my kids to want that drive. Cause I think it does create sparks in our belly to want to go get more. Right. I don't think it's a bad thing. It creates work ethic, in my opinion, more than anything. It creates the drive for more. But also too, like, I don't know, man. That's a hard part for me with like as a parent right now.
Sure.
Like we've always said, like it's mommy and daddy's money. It's not your money. Is what we're going to tell our kids when they're old enough. Like Lainey's not old enough now to understand that, but like I'll spend it all. Go get yours. It's kind of the biggest thing. But like it does create that desire to go get more.
And the desire can be positive and negative because my desire living in that area, there were faster roads to making more. And those options became available to me. And that's where I kind of went off the course a little bit, because I ran into some people that were showing me ways that I can make more money faster and easier, without having to put in the time and effort in that my father was trying to show me.
Yeah. Sometimes a shortcut it ends up being a long cut if we look at it long term, right?
Exactly, and that's what all the gray hairs are about, But it's all life experiences. Sometimes you make poor decisions, but you have to live with your decisions and choices. I struggle with it as a younger person because I always wanted to put the blame on my mom or somebody else. Finally, when I spoke to somebody one time, when I was trying to learn more about God, even though we were Catholic growing up, we just go and put money in the basket. Please forgive me, and if more money you put in, you get forgiven. That's how I thought until somebody was telling me about a little bit more about God and what Jesus is all about and everything, and they explained to me that I need to look within and quit. In order for me to overcome all these things and the things that are eating up in my head and in my heart and everything, he says I have to search within first and find out where I played a hand in it, because we all play our own hand in everything that we do in life. And I had trouble understanding that till he was trying to break me down and show me. And the more and more I started digging deeper and deeper, I finally started to realize that, I could have done things a little bit different. I could have made a different choice. I didn't have to be angry at my parents or whatever it was at the time and use that as an excuse to act the way that I did. And, unfortunately I didn't learn that until I was 40, but, because I kept challenging it and I kept believing that, if I can do the right things are going to come. But I was looking at it all wrong, because, from what I understand, all of these valleys and things that I've been through, God's been there the whole time. Okay. And it's not that he allows these bad things to happen or whatever. These are learning experiences, and he shows his face, and he has been showing his face all along my life. I just been too blind to see it.
Yeah. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. Right.
Yeah.
There's beauty in everything. Like we're all of God's creation. Everything on earth is of God's creation. Right. Mm-hmm. So like if we don't look for it, we're not going to find it. You know what I mean? And that's something I've learned in my life. Like kids, for me, is a massive one. Like and I'm sure you felt this too, but like that first time when I saw Lainey, like that is to me, that's the most pure, most innocent thing. And we created it because God willed it into existence. Wow. We did the work to get there.
Right.
It's just like anything else in life. This business, God I didn't just wake up one morning, God's like, oh, you're going to have a successful business. Like, I had to do the work to get there. But I think if you put him in front, like, you can find it in literally everything. Like, you can find him anywhere, man. But yeah, it's a hard lesson learned, right? Because we just think, oh, well, I don't need God for that. Like, God ain't putting in the work. But God knows the plan, right? That's a hard lesson for Christians. That's a hard lesson for men, I would argue. I think men in general, like, we have this, because we're providers, right?
Right.
That's what, and like, if you run it back biblically, we're providers. Women are caretakers. Like, that is the biblical definition of what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So a lot of times we get lost in our work, or we get led down the wrong path, or whatever that is. Like, we get angry at God for the wrong reasons. Maybe he puts you in that situation because he was trying to redirect you. And maybe when you got in trouble with what you were doing, it was really a redirect from him. But instead of being gracious and understanding that his grace allowed you the opportunity to try to find a new path, we're angry at him, and we're mad because he put us in a situation that we put ourselves in.
Right.
You know,
right.
Because I've been there. I've had businesses fail. I've had, relationships go sour, and slap me in the face, and I'm too stupid and stubborn to just say no. It doesn't work like that, right? But yeah, you can find God's beauty in literally everything. Everything. Whether there's something in this room that you can find God's beauty in if you allow it to be. It's all perspective based. Right. I'm not saying you have to be a complete optimist about everything in life to do so.
Exactly.
But the lessons, I'd like to learn one way, and that's the hard way. And it sounds like you're in the same boat, but it's not a bad thing. But it can be frustrating when you want something and you can't figure out why you can't get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a complete tangent. This is your episode.
No, this is perfect. I mean, because I think this is why, I felt connected with you at the beginning, because I think that somehow, some way, I don't know, you get me, with just the little talks that we had before, and just by the way you're answering my questions and stuff, the way that I had to go through certain interviews with you and your whole family and things like that, and the questions you guys were asking, it was a total, different experience in an interview that I've ever experienced, but it was more meaningful because I can sense that, who's this? He doesn't even know me, but he truly cares. Yeah. He cares about who he does business with. He cares about who works for him, and you give chances. You give everybody a chance, and and you didn't ask any questions at the beginning from me, and I just, and I had burning desire, because you guys were like good to me right off the bat, and you guys give out, weekly paychecks, just for doing the bare minimums. I came in at a bad time when it's the winter time, and I felt bad taking paychecks every week, and we weren't producing because we couldn't get out there and work because of the snow and stuff. And then you guys provide me with a company vehicle, and I'm like, this is just too much for me. And it's the little things, they're big things, but it's the little things that mean the most to me. And, a little bit about me, because of all the stuff that I've been through, trust and loyalty and things like that are certain core values that I grew up with. Call it old school, if you will. But, I still live that way. And unfortunately, society and things are a little bit different now and stuff. But you guys are like that, whether you mean it or not, because you guys do it in a different way, but you also do it through God.
Yeah, I mean, you put God at the forefront of anything, and I think that you're bound to be successful in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes that's just a lesson, right? Sometimes, you do something and you put God first, but it ends up being a lesson. You didn't necessarily gain anything monetarily, but that's why I tell you guys, if you lose, it's not a loss, it's a learn, right? What did you learn from it? How can you improve from it? How can we get better from it? Right. I'm not the be all end all of anything, but I'll try anything once, and for the most part, there's a hard line with a lot of stuff. But business wise, like there's no secret sauce, right? It's not we just really, like, I think more business owners need to take an approach of where would you want to work? Like, where would you enjoy? Like, I enjoy coming to work every day. Crazy as that sounds, all the headaches, all the fires I have to put out, I still enjoy what I do. not only because it provides for my family, but we can provide for other families. We get to help out homeowners. There's a lot more to it than that, you know. Sorry, I don't mean to. We can talk about business all day, and I love talking about it, but I want to get back on Anthony.
Okay.
Talk to me about being a dad. What's that meant to you? Like maybe some struggles you went through. Just kind of walk me through, because at this point, you know, you got grandbabies. All your kids are grown. Not saying that, you know, you're not still able to be a role model and a father figure and all that good stuff to them. But walk me through like childhood stuff. I always like to call myself a Frankenstein, because I'll just take pieces from everybody, and I want to hear the good and the bad and like things and perspective that you maybe would have done a little bit different, things like that. You know.
Part of that, when I decided to get married, I was nervous because I didn't think I could have children. When I was a child, when we had our BMX bikes, we used to jump them and do things, and the bikes weren't as sturdy and built as strong as they are nowadays. And I had jumped this ramp one time, and then I landed on the crossbar, and you know, I had to go to the doctor and stuff, and the doctor had told me that I may not be able to have children one day because of the injury. And that, you know, it's been in my head all my life, that I might not be, how am I going to get married and not be able to give a woman a child, you know? And my father always wanted to have a son to carry out the family name, you know, and things like that, being, you know, Italian and stuff. And all of a sudden, right away, when I, you know, met my wife Maria, she wanted to have children, and I didn't say nothing to her, you know, and I felt bad. And then all of a sudden she got pregnant. And then I'm starting to get my head started going, how's she pregnant? The doctor told me.
Build other crap in your head and deal with your own thoughts, right?
Yeah. So, you know, it bothered me. And then, you know, I had trouble with it. And then all of a sudden, 4 years, we had our twin boys, and I was surprised I could even have one child, let alone when we were there at the ultrasound place. The lady's like, "Oh, you hear that?" And like, "I hear this," and I'm like, "What is she talking about?" You know, I don't hear nothing. I don't know what's going on. All you hear is, ksh, ksh.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to us, right?
Yeah, and then like, "Can you see this picture? Can you see that?" And I can't see anything on it, but yet the women can see stuff. So, anyways, she says, "Well, that's one heartbeat, and here's two heartbeats." And I'm like, "What?" You know, I thought that was a problem. And then it turned out that there's twins. So I was like, how can I go from not having any kids to having twins? So I get on the phone with my mother right away. "Ma, we have twins in the family. Something's wrong here." So right away, again, my negative thoughts, or the devil's in my head thinking my wife's doing something on the side, you know? And,
well, and just so you understand biologically, in case you don't know, men don't dictate whether there's going to be twins or not. No.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, because the women are the ones that produce the eggs, so they're the ones that determine how those eggs are separated. If they drop two at the same, are your boys fraternal or paternal?
No, fraternal.
Okay.
Fraternal means they don't look. They're the same date but different look.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
It's fraternal.
So that means two eggs at the same time. If you're paternal, and I could be wrong, and the internet can.
Paternal means they're the same twins.
If they're identical,
if
they're identical, then that means the eggs split.
Oh, okay.
If they're if they look different, they're not the exact same, that means there's two different eggs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So biologically, you know, but at that time, like, so what I wanted to hint on with this story is like, when did that happen? When did the BMX thing happen?
When I was with my grandparents, I was maybe 10 years old.
Yeah, so that's funny because there's a lot of psychology that says that we develop who we are between the ages of 6 and 11.
Okay.
So you hearing that created this thing in the back of your head, and then you take all the other life events that come into play with not being able to trust. That's parents being divorced. That's all the things that come along with that. Not to air out their dirty laundry, but then it's never fun, right? There's always something that causes that, whether it's financial problems or whatever. So we hear these things when we're young, and they create who we are in our personality and as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny because you're kind of a case study there for me, that something like it wasn't Anthony. How old were you when you had your kids?
29.
Okay. So it wasn't Anthony at 30. We'll just round it up.
Mm-hmm.
That was creating those thoughts. It was Anthony when he was 10. creating those thoughts, and then all the other crap that came along with that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just funny, like looking at it, and it's hard to want to unbox that and become because we create our identity between 6 and 11 is what happens.
Okay.
So then as we create that identity, that's who we become as adults. And that's why those are so important to us as parents to make sure that we're cultivating those relationships, right? My biggest fear as a girl dad is that I'm not enough of a father figure that my daughter looks for elsewhere, right? And that's something we see in the world today all the time. And I don't understand it from a guy's perspective personally, like how, back to the kids thing, man, like how you can look at that baby and then just want to disregard who they are as an individual. Like I am so excited. It sucks because she's growing up, but like I'm so excited to see who she becomes. But that, back to you, when we take that and we say, okay, I learned this, or I acquired this, I guess we'll call it a skill at 10. And then when I'm 30, it's coming back and it's going, and I got that devil on my shoulder going, hey, that's not your kid. Hey, you couldn't have babies. You remember that? Hey, your wife, something's going on, which then creates friction inside the marriage, which honestly, like that is like one of the things that the devil loves to attack, right? That's one of the things the enemy loves to go after is our marriage, because it really should be our sole source of happiness.
Right.
I put God first. I put my wife second. I put my kids third, and I put my business fourth. I think I do that very intentionally because that's how the order of things is the way that they should go. And really I put myself in the same line with God, because if I'm not right, nothing else can be. So when you had that, you created this friction dynamic. I want to see if I can guess this story.
Go ahead. Well, you're right on so far.
So we created this friction dynamic, and it created all these, even if you didn't bring it up, we're having conversations with other people, even if you didn't bring it up to your wife that there was possibly some infidelity or things like that happening, created even though she was probably as loyal as we want a wife to be, not just saying that anyone's perfect, we created our own demons, and we created the wedge that became, what is that marriage? Really, the better interpretation, in my opinion, is the splinter, right? When you have a splinter and you don't take care of it, what happens to it? It gets infected. It gets nasty. It can create things. You can get gangrene. You essentially created gangrene inside your marriage, and you didn't know what you were doing, right? And there's nobody at fault there, right? You could take the blame for yourself, because that's what I think that we should do as humans, is say, I am the one to blame. But then that created the wedge, and then that however, because I know you guys aren't married any longer, right? So having that predetermined information, then, that created the separation between you two. Is that fair? I'm just curious if I'm right.
So, I can say yes now. Back then I would argue the difference, but now looking back and understanding more.
Hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, you're right on. And I haven't actually had that conversation with her, because as we continue to talk, there's other things that I'm angry at with her. But I realize that I may have pushed that or been a part of that. And so I'm having trouble forgiving her, because she's never asked for it.
Well, and so I'll say this, when it comes to holding anger and disposition to something that I've found in my life, is when we're angry with someone, typically it doesn't hurt that person. And if it does, it's not to the degree we want it to. Right? When you talked about the Lord's Prayer, there, of forgive our trespassers
as we forgive others. Yeah.
Yes. And so forgiveness is so important. When Jesus talked about the Lord's Prayer, we don't think about the fact that it's that splinter. It's that festering splinter, if we look at it in full spectrum, right? Because that splinter in your hand doesn't hurt the person you're trying to hurt, right? All it does is it just hangs out in there and it hurts us internally. And that anger that we hold on to does nobody any favors, because we're not going to hurt that person. Odds are what's going to happen, if we're angry enough with them that we can decide that it's hate, we're going to hurt people we care about in the process, and not them. So there will be people caught in the crossfire of our anger, and it doesn't do anyone any favors. And the person that typically hurts the most when we're angry with someone is us, right? So it's hard to come over, right? I'm a freaking masculine dude. I get mad at people all the time. It's a really hard lesson. It's easier for me to armchair quarterback it than it is for me to practicality it. But I think the more I talk about it, the more it's easier for me. Right? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your story.
This is perfect because you're right on, and you're helping me have better understanding of it too, in a godly way.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that.
Well, I think if you run everything back to God, right? That's where, like, one of my least favorite sayings that Christians say is "give it to God." Okay, what's that mean? Right?
Exactly.
That's where I have issue with it. What that means to me, because that's where I was just talking about right before we had this podcast. I was having a conversation. The reason why the Bible's called the living word is because of interpretation. How we interpret it is why it's the living word, and it's active in everyday life. When you're giving it to God, are you praying on it? Are you meditating on it? Are you trying to find scripture? Are you letting God lead you to scripture? Are you doing those things when you're giving it to God? Or are you just saying, hey, it's God's problem now? Because God's not going to just fix your problem for the heck of it. He's going to require the work that's involved to fix that problem. It's my favorite analogy from I don't care where you are as a Christian. You cannot pray for a good garden. You still have to pick up the hoe and do the work. If you don't do the work with what you're trying to give to God or ask God for, He's not going to give you anything. He requires us as humans the free will to go out and do the work to do that, whether that's in that relationship, building a business, the forgiveness, even if she doesn't accept it, is more for Anthony than it is for Marie. For Maria.
Maria, yeah.
It's not. That's what it comes down to. It's not for the person we're giving it to. Honestly, like if I were to show you forgiveness and you showed me complete disregard for that, it's not going to hurt me any different than it is if you accepted it fully and we mended a relationship. At the end of the day, I know I forgave.
Okay. And
we all struggle with that, right? It's not you're going to continue to. You'll find people that hurt you along the way, and but the biggest thing is like when it comes down to relationships, in my opinion, if we don't fix the crap that's wrong with us, we'll never be happy in a relationship we're in, right? And some of that is giving, letting go of things. For instance, my wife and I, we would have loved to have met sooner. And looking at it in full perspective, we know that God didn't intend that. I mean, I've shared the story enough on the podcast, and I'll tell you off air on how we met, but it's crazy, the circumstance of events. And looking at it now in full perspective, neither one of us would have been ready, right? And we had to learn lessons along the way about how to love each other and what we didn't want out of a relationship and those types of things in order to be the unit that we are now. We are truly man and wife. We are one solid unit working inside of this world. But
beautiful. It
is, man. But the thing is like if something were to happen and that relationship were to go awry, and it's something I pray about constantly, is I hope it doesn't. I would have to find forgiveness for her, and she would have to find forgiveness for me to heal. Because all we're going to hurt. I'm a product of a divorce, as you know. Both my parents worked here. They divorced we have similar stories. They divorced when I was 4. I guarantee you're holding on to crap from that divorce. No. And it spilled over into other relationships you had. You probably didn't want to go through a divorce. You didn't want to experience that. You didn't want your kids to experience that, right?
Not at all.
So I guarantee you all held on to that relationship way longer than it should have been.
True.
For that reason.
True. That was my reason, but I was told that that's the wrong reason to hold on, because I was hurting our relationship and hurting the children more than I was helping it all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the advice I give to young men, how I give it to anybody that wants to listen, is if you're not right with you, you're not going to be right for a spouse. And the same goes for young women. If you're not right with you, you're just going to drag crap into a relationship that doesn't matter. Sorry, man. Just got some.
This is helping me a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm glad
I didn't mean this to be therapy couch here. So how old were your kids? Like, walk me through the rest of that relationship.
So going back to the day that my twins were born, there was complications. Okay. I didn't want be in the room. I was nervous, but I had her mother come in there with me, and then they had to do emergency C-section because they were twins, and apparently my boys were pulling her placenta or something off the wall, and they had to take them out fast. And all this was happening, blood and everything, and I couldn't deal with it, and thought I was a tough dude, but I was about to fall down there right in the operating room. Anyways, long story short, my boys Rocco and Nico, they came out. They pulled me over there to distract my attention by cutting the umbilical cord because my wife was having complications. And we hadn't named them or nothing. Everything was happening so fast. And then I kept hearing the buzzers going off and things. And so they rushed her out of there, and I went with. So I didn't want to, how they bring the children in. My wife went through a complication, and she almost died over this. And I didn't know how I was going to raise these kids.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because prior to that, I didn't know if those were my kids. I just had that, thought. So, but this happened, and I argued with the doctors. They wouldn't let me stay there with her. I said, I'm not leaving. Call the cops. I stayed. They took 2 days. They kept wanting me to go see my boys. I said, no, how about her? Amen.
You're good, bro.
And I didn't know then, but now I realize that, God was showing me that He do care about her. And I was wrong. No. I was scared.
That's scary, man. That is.
And I prayed for God to take me so she could be there. She woke up. It was beautiful. So, I'm not a great guy. I've done, things in my past. I've hurt people. I've done, things. And at that moment, I was ready to do anything I had to do if something happened to her. And thank God she came back.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ending to the story. It's a terrible situation, right? So the good news is she's still here.
Yeah, she's still here. Pain in the ass that she is. She's still here. But I do love her because she is the mother of my children. I really want to forgive her, and I'm struggle with that. I've carried on a lot of burden and private things in our lives because to me, it's nobody's business. I don't need
Absolutely.
to broadcast what my wife did or didn't do or whatever because I don't need to look good in front of nobody. I don't care what people think because this is my family.
Absolutely.
So I've carried all that all my life because nobody understands. Even my family, they're like, well, why is this? And because my wife, she did the opposite. She liked to win my family or her family over on her side. And, that's what angered me because I felt like she lied.
Yeah.
And I was always brought up that, you don't need to justify yourself. You just need to live life the right way and tell the truth. And the truth will always come out.
Absolutely.
And it's true to my background because anything that I did wrong, I paid the consequences for it, and they were, I'm not proud of it, but I'm proud of the lessons and the things that I've learned in life. I'm sorry for some of the things that my decisions caused harm to other people because the children are the ones that suffer in everything in life, and that's where I have problems forgiving myself. Because my whole intention, my whole life was to stay married forever didn't want to live the life that I had to go through. I wanted my children to have both mother and father around. I wanted my wife to stay home and raise the children. And so I did everything I had to do to make that happen. I gave them, in my opinion, great homes. We always had beautiful homes. They had everything they wanted. But where I went wrong there is they had material things, but they didn't have my love.
Yeah.
And I had that pointed out to me again too once I got involved with a church group and men's group, talking to people like I'm talking to you. It's hard for me to get some answers because I don't ever truly open up to anybody because I don't trust nobody because of types of hurt that have happened to me when I do put my trust in people. So I only give so much, and so I guess it's not fair for somebody to be able to know me or understand me or believe in me because maybe I don't give them enough to feel comfortable enough to do that. So I take ownership for that as well, and but it's all part of how I've grown up that I'm holding on to. That's causing me, even now that I know more, but I still slip back into those mind thoughts sometimes when things come at me, and I'm working on it, because I do want to be a better person. I want to help people. I want to do the right things, and I don't want to have so much anger built up in me anymore, and I appreciate being around good people. You've given me that opportunity, not just as a work environment, but I mean, this goes beyond because you involve me with your family events. We do things outside the company a lot. We chili cook-offs. We go on vacations. You just took us to a seminar thing, but it was more than a seminar because I got more out of it because somehow God showed up there too.
Yeah, I mean, you almost went to jail too, so that was fun.
You almost went to jail.
You were right there with me, buddy. But no, it's that we can talk about that story. There's a couple things there that I want to unpack though. Just kind of as a friendly reminder, and I think it's just good for everybody to hear. But one thing I oftentimes think we forget when we're in a relationship, especially, but just in life in general, is like everyone has their own box of shit, right? So I'll use your wife as an example, just because that's the topic we're kind of on. She had all the exact same amount of crap that you did. It's not special, right? She had things from her childhood and those developmental years that are, and things that happened in her past that she had to bring to the table in a relationship. And we forget that oftentimes, right? Like we just think that, especially when you're in those early years of a relationship, like let's just be honest, we all wear rose-colored glasses. It's called the honeymoon phase, right? Where everything's, she's just perfect and nothing's wrong with her and everything's great. Like there are things that my wife hates about me and there are things that that I despise about my wife. Like there are just things that we don't do well. I'll give you an example. Last night, my wife sent me to go get baby cream. It's not where it's supposed to be. That drives me crazy. Just put it back where it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
And know where it's at if you don't, right? Me, I leave my dirty clothes everywhere. That drives my wife crazy. Like there's things that we don't like about each other, right? And it's finding a balance between those two. But where I was going with that is your wife brought things along. She brought baggage. Like we all bring baggage in everything. And it doesn't matter what level of interaction you have with someone. Someone's going through something or has been through something that creates this dichotomy inside their head where they're like, oh, crap, right? And so you said something too, that's something I want to remind you of, right? And we all have to realize that. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with somebody at the grocery store or a customer or whatever, like they all have their own little set of things.
Right.
Something you also said is like, I'm a firm believer that the truth will always come to light. Like, just be honest. If you're honest, I'm in the same boat, man. There are a handful of people that I actually hate in the world. And I cannot stand somebody that does not tell the truth. Just tell the truth. I don't care how bad it is. Let me be mad in the moment, but not mad at you forever.
Exactly.
Right? Or the other one is anybody that harms children. I could go on about that for days, but that's a whole other podcast.
No, I'm right with you there.
So we're in the same boat there, right? But I found that it's easier just to let them be a liar and me just to forgive them and just separate them from my life. I don't need them in my boat, right? Kick them off the boat. But I need to forgive you, right? It's not worth me holding on to this and creating some level of whatever with that. But yeah, man, there's so many important things like that young men need to realize when they're young men, especially, but just young people in general, I guess, when they're marrying someone, like you are creating a life together. It's no different than when I tell somebody when they're naming a child, I'm like, that is an adult you're naming.
No.
Don't name them Butterfly Rainbow because it sounds cool and it's fun and trendy. And what are they going to have to write on their social security card and sign on the dotted line for the rest of their life? Like, name them like an adult.
Right.
And, but, you know, with that, it's with the same thing with marriage, though. Like, don't haphazardly go into a relationship because you're not only affecting that person's life who you're going into a relationship with, you're affecting your entire family's life. And I look at my family as me and my household. Everybody outside of that is someone we get to choose to invite into that house. Mm-hmm. And it's something we often don't look at, right? Because we get those rose-colored glasses, you know, hey, she's cute, she's hot, whatever. He looks nice. He's got a nice smile. He's making a little bit of money, whatever, like your thing is with that individual, instead of actually looking at them as a person. You know, you said about the material stuff. My wife and I have talked about that constantly. God strips it all away tomorrow, puts us in a cardboard box, give me my kids, and I'll be fine. Like, I don't care. I'll hustle that situation, but that's just a situation. My permanent is my family. Wow. And you realize that when your wife was having the complications. Nothing else mattered in that moment.
Yeah. And it's sad that it takes certain things like that.
It does.
For you, yeah.
I remember when Lainey was born, Tori had some complications. Nothing crazy to that degree. But it's crazy in that moment. I know I related to you, is what I'm saying. Because here you have this baby. It's born. It's healthy. You're happy about that. Now what's happening with my wife? Like, this part's checked out. I checked the box. Tell me what's going on over here. Mm-hmm. Tell me that she's okay. You know, because my wife and I are very intentional about things. So we had the conversation like, okay, so what if something happens and they have to take you away to go do some emergency surgery or something for you specifically? Like, what are we doing? And my wife would prefer that I follow the baby. So we kind of have that contingency plan in place. She just wants me to go stay with the baby. That's her decision, right? And it'd be hard as a man for me to decide otherwise, right? Because that's my kids are my everything too, but they're also the thing that my wife and I created, right? So like, it's the best parts of both of us. So unless I'm in that situation, I couldn't tell you how I would react, but I'm probably no different than you. Like, let me see my wife. Tell me what's going on with my wife. Like, give me updates as to what's happening. What do you need from me? You know, is it a money thing? Like, what is it? Like, tell me how I fix it. What do you need? You know, and, but it is in that moment though, when Lainey was born, nothing else mattered. Like, it didn't matter what was going on at work. It didn't matter what was going on social media. Wow. It didn't matter. You know, but do you know that feeling when those kids are born, man? You're just looking at it. It's the most perfect thing you've ever created. And then you're like, how do I not fuck this up? Then you go on that path and then you enter actual parenthood, right? But for those first couple hours, it's literally just like, I try to explain to young men who are getting ready to have kids, and I'm like, I can't tell you what. Kyle sat in that chair, and I was like, man, I cannot tell you what you're going to feel, but it's just like, I remember a life before my kids, but I don't, right? Like, you become a different person almost, is the way I felt.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, oh, we did a lot of really cool stuff, but like, this is kind of all that, I don't want to say it's all that matters because it's not, but it is.
Right.
That's my legacy. That's carrying on my DNA. That's my last name. And like if you, I'm a Bible person, but I'm also a very science person. And like, if we think about it biologically, like, we feel that way because that's our lineage, and that's why we want to protect our kids. That's why we want to, you know, them to see no harm and them to grow up to be great people and better than us, because we want our DNA to go on biologically. But like, it's crazy stuff. But what's walk me through. So we talked, like, what didn't change in that moment for you? Like, you guys just went back to the same old after like a couple months of probably really good times, and then
well, actually, there wasn't too much issues then, other than the fact that at the time, you know, I was involved with, you know, in business with on the other side of the street, so to speak, and you know, the person I was with, partner, so I'll say, he was one that suggested that I get married and have children because we were making a lot of money. And he says that I need to settle down and build a foundation. Otherwise, I'm going to run wild, and, you know, it's not good for business. So he was like a father to me and also a mentor, but he was from the wrong side of the street. So anyways, moving forward from that, we weren't really having too many issues, her and I at the time, other than the fact that because some of the things that I was doing with my partner outside of our uh, car business that we had going, flipping cars and stuff, I was also going around collecting monies on other things, and I was going to strip bars to do collections. And because I was out at night and stuff, it was causing problems. I was working, but yet, you know, at the time too, I forgot to say that when I bought the house for the kids and stuff, but we also moved her parents in so her mother could help with the twins and stuff. And so I didn't feel comfortable in my own house with her parents there, because then the father was trying to run, be the boss of my shit, and that angered me, and I didn't want to hurt him.
I paid the damn bills here, man. It's my house. I get it.
Exactly. But I still wanted to give him respect because he was her father. I didn't approve of a lot of things, how he treated the mother or anything, but that's between them.
Yep.
But they were still living in my home.
Different generation too.
Yeah. And but anyways, long story short with that is that he always her father always got in the middle of our business and stuff. So one time I was collecting and we got drunk and I came home, and I don't know who dropped me off home, but I was laying on the couch and they found there was a business card with a red lipsticks on the coffee table, and then there was like a condom laying on the floor. And everybody came down and seen me passed out. I wasn't undressed or nothing, but right away they created a story and that I was like infidel, whatever, and how can I do this and all that. And I couldn't answer that because I didn't know.
You were drunk. You had no idea what the hell was going on. Yeah.
And because of that, that's where things flipped, and that bothered me. It still bothers me to this day because I will take accountability for anything that I do. But if I don't know and it doesn't make sense to me, then I can't ever come to terms with it. And that's been a big struggle for me and part of the reason too, and I'll share this, I never shared, because of my injury and stuff, I always had, I guess, erectile dysfunction or something, or things didn't work properly all the time. So like, number one, rubbers wouldn't stay on me, like the big ones that they found on the floor. There's no way, and I never used the rubbers with my wife. So she knew I don't do that. So that's why it didn't make no sense to me. It was like it was a setup or something.
Yeah, you felt like it was a plant.
Yeah. So that's but because of that, it's where the tables turn. And then I always, stayed away from home and made work my
working money your God. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yet in my heart, I felt like I was giving her parents, and my children the best home that they can have, everything they wanted. I thought I was doing more than what was done for me as a child. So I thought I was successful in that area because I was better than what I had. And it was better than what she had growing up, But, it's not that, because it's, even though, like I said, you have material things, you can have this and that. I mean, if you don't have love in the home, you don't have God in the home, you don't have, the special moments, family pictures, family, Sunday dinners, things like that. Those are the real things that kids remember.
Yeah.
And I always try to make good memories for my kids. I also try to train them so that they wouldn't have to go through things I went through as far as getting beat up. I put them in karate. I made them play football. I was always tough with them and stuff. But later on in life, when me and her separated and things, I found out that my boys, she told me one time that I was going to watch my boys. They're supposed to play high school football, and it was on the TV, and I didn't see them playing. So I called and asked, what's going on with the boys? She says, they quit. I says, what do you mean? She's like, they never wanted to play football. They did that for you because they were scared of you. They wanted to make you happy because you're so dominant, so this and I felt bad because all I was trying to do is help these kids be men, so that they wouldn't have to go through the stuff that I went through.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she said that my kids feared me, and that hurt.
Have you fixed that relationship now? Not with
My children?
with the kids, yeah.
My father told me before he died here recently, he told me, he said, son, what's done is done. He says, coming back into their lives now and trying to be the dad where you left off, it's not the place. He said, you're not going to be able to change that. And he says, and for you to try to be an influence on them now, he says it's not going to do you any good because they might still have resentment. He says they will come to you because they know who you are and how you are if they need you. He says, so just wait for the moment, you know. And I don't know if that was good advice or not good advice, or, you know, he was afraid that I was going to maybe get back with my ex or something, because when I started finding God and, you know, gave my life to the Lord again in January 29th, 2012, you know, I was trying to figure out a way to accept responsibility for everything that has happened throughout my life and to my wife's life and everybody. And I was trying to find a way to forgive and try to work on it, our relationship in a different way, give it a chance, because I started seeing where, you know, maybe I was wrong, and not wrong that I did something wrong, but maybe because I didn't give her the love that she needed or the nourishment that she needed, and that caused her to do or whatever that she did.
Yeah.
You know, so my father told me while he's alive, he says, come work with me, I'm sick. Once you're back in the business, he goes, I'll leave you the business, do this and that. He goes, but you got to promise me you'll never go back to your life, you know. And at the time I accepted that because I was transitioning from home improvements and the situation I had. And I got out of it for a little while. And I'll discuss that with you here shortly. But so I lived for my father at that time, you know, and I thought I was going to build something, but then he tapped out on me. You know, we were having the best relationship that we've ever had for the first time. And I finally, you know, I guess the way that I am comes from him, because he never told me he loved me, and he finally did, which is huge. He finally told me he was proud of me because he saw what I did with his company, you know, while he was getting in and out of hospital and stuff. So, you know, he would never say that I do things better than him because he's, you know, but he gave me enough to know that he acknowledges or sees that I've grown.
Yeah.
You know, that was the one thing I wanted closure on. You know, before he died, I wanted to reconnect. And my whole thing when I found God, I wanted to reconnect with all my family and get on better terms. And, you know, even my father was making fun of me. He was calling me Joe Osteen, you know, because I was trying to talk to him about, you know, God and stuff. And, you know, and he'd say, "Oh, son, you're a good salesman, this and that. You ought to get out there like Joe and go out there and hustle people for money and preach the Lord, the word." And, you know, he just had a whole bad perspective.
Church did him dirty at some point.
Yeah. So, and a funny story with the Joe Osteen thing, it was back then when I'm just sitting there watching TV in the middle of the night when I'm upset, going through some things with my wife, and Joe's was on TV in California at a baseball thing, and he's doing an altar call and telling people to come down and stuff, and then he says, "And you sitting there on the couch, and you sitting there in your bed, get down on your knees in front of the TV." I'm like, what? You know, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm sitting in there by myself, you know, and I'm like, what am I, you know? And I was scared, but I got up out of my bed and went on my knees. And for the first time, other than when something happened to my wife, I cried. Because I cry a lot now, ever since I've come to the Lord.
Yeah, dude, it's good.
I've never been that way. I've always been trained to not have feelings, to be able to walk away from a situation like that. That's been my, you know, training from the street. And but since God's come, and I say in and out of my life, although I know He's been there, I guess I feel guilty, because I'm not doing my part and serving Him like I should be serving Him, or doing the things that we're surrendering to Him wholeheartedly. That's something some person told me too, that have you surrendered to Him? I didn't understand that, and I'm still trying to get it.
Yeah, it's a hard, as guys, it's hard for us to want to say that we're not, we can't do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's a hard line to cross when we're exploring a relationship with God. And, it's not fun. It's really not. You feel weak, you feel less than, you feel all these emotions that you really probably shouldn't feel, because you're asking for help, and help is not a bad thing. We've grown up as men to think that help is a bad thing, right? Oh, you can't ask for help. You've got to do it yourself. I grew up working with my dad and working in the trades. Trust me, I've heard it all.
Yeah.
But, when you are able to actually surrender to God, it is a freeing feeling, because, He's in control, but you're doing the work, right? It's He's driving the bus. One thing Jesus talks about a lot is He talks about the yoke. Take my yoke, right? He talks about it a lot in this teaching. His Sermon on the Mount. That's one of the main things He talks about is taking the yoke. And we think that is a perfect description of what your relationship with Christ is. When you put a yoke on two oxen, they're doing the work together. You put the yoke on you and let Christ take the other half, you're doing the work together. He's helping take your burden. It is an amazing feeling when you actually when you're walking side by side in Christ. You're never going to reach Him, right? You're never going to be at the attainable level that He is. But what you can do is work towards what you feel like is the right direction to be walking with Him. Yeah, man, it's an amazing feeling when you actually truly, you surrendered that night at the Joel Osteen. That's why you cried, in my opinion. That was a surrender. You gave it up to God. You said, God, I'm yours. You do it. And we honestly, a lot of folks have to hit their rock bottom to get there. That's kind of a crazy thing, because honestly, God is with you at the celebrations just as much as He is with you in your valleys. But unless you actually hit a rock bottom, we don't have transformation. And if you're so far off your path with Christ that you can't do anything but turn to Him, that's when He's going to find you the most. My favorite analogy is Christ always, you don't have to knock on the door. The door's already open. You just have to walk through it. And it's not like the door ever shuts. It's always there. You can leave the room, you can get off your path, you can do all these other things, but you have to be intentional. It's called a relationship for a reason. Just back to the same thing with the marriage. If you're not working on your relationship inside your marriage or with your kids or whatever that is, it's not going to work. It requires work to do so. You have to have a relationship with God just the same. And that's how special it is. There's so much that can be said about the relationship that we can form and the bonds that we can form with Christ if we just let Him help us carry our yoke. You do it by yourself, it's going to be double the work. If you surrender it to God and truly surrender to Him and say, I am a child of You, it is amazing how far that can take you in life. And really just how freeing it is. If I'm not the only one carrying this weight, if I have somebody, my wife and I carry a yoke together, we're raising kids, right? But we put Christ right in the middle of that yoke. My daughter does affirmations right now. We believe in power of words, They're not, you can't understand what she's saying, but these are things we want her to think about herself.
She may be speaking in tongues.
Yeah, sometimes I think she is.
Wow.
But, I am strong, and we do little motions with it. So I'm strong, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm beautiful. And then the last one is I love Jesus. We want Jesus to be the center of our household. Just because it's mine doesn't mean that it doesn't belong to God.
No, I seen her dancing when we were at the roof con, but your mom was holding her, and they were playing spiritual music, and they were both, and she was in.
She worships, yeah.
That was amazing. I saw that.
I think there's an issue in America that we think the kids are too young. They shouldn't know this stuff, because the Bible talks a lot about, sin of the flesh. So things that are too rough for kids. And the sooner you can get a child to have a relationship with God, the better off you are. But that's not to be said. I think there's a beautiful thing, and I call you an 11th hour. You're probably more of a 9th hour. I don't think you're dying anytime soon. But I love the story of redemption more than I love the story of someone who was raised. I wasn't raised in the church. We were creasters at best. At best, we were creasters. And we just made a decision as a couple that said we want Christ to be in our home. We want our kids to have a church that is home. And what we love about our church is it's an orange church, is what they say, and it brings the light of the home, or the heart of the home, and the light of the church, and they mend them together, and we create one big family that is orange. And Christ said, wherever more than 3 is gathered, call that my church. You don't have to go to a physical church to have church.
True.
We're getting ready to have Bible study here.
Yeah.
That's a church.
Yeah.
People don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. It's Christ's bride. Someday he's coming for his bride. If you're not part of that, well, it could be a bad timing, but, read your Bible and actually read it. And it says, whoever believes in him shall never perish. It does not say whoever believes in him and goes to church and tithes and does it. No. Belief is the core value there. And that's where I think as Christians we get off on the wrong. That's why Joel Osteen, I don't think he's particularly a bad guy. Mm-hmm. I do think that he gets a bad rap, and most people don't actually look at the economics that most of his money that he personally has generated is from his books, which people voluntarily buy. He doesn't take a salary from the church. However, we've created this ministry inside the United States that's profiteering. We go after money. One of the worst ones is Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah. I have his daily devotion, which I like. But
and it's probably not bad stuff, but the way he acts, right, that he is above. You are a man of God. You are you are not just a man of God. You are supposed to be preaching the word of God. If you're, this is a personal opinion, but this is my opinion. If you go to a church and they ask you for an offering, you're at the wrong church. If your church does not teach out of the Bible, you are at the wrong church.
True.
If you are not actually, if you go to Sunday, don't get me wrong, our church has some great music. Our people are phenomenal. I love our church for that. You don't have to sing out of a hymnal book in order for it to be the right or wrong church. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is if your church does not actually teach what Jesus said, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Because we are following Christ. We are Christians. We follow Christ. We don't follow the man on the stage. He is nothing more than a mouthpiece. Just like I am just a mouthpiece right now talking about my interpretation of what the word means to me. Mm-hmm. But there's so much, there's more beauty in the world than most people give it credit for.
I agree. And I'm searching for that.
And what I would encourage you, Anthony, is just open your eyes, because I promise you it's always right in front of you. It's perspective, right? Yes, man made this shelf. If it wasn't a Dollar Tree shelf, I don't know where those got it. It'd be beautiful to me. And it is. It's beautiful. You know why? Because of the pictures that are on there and the representation of what it is. And I have pictures of different family members and people that are important to me. And, that book is nothing more on the table, is nothing more than pages on paper or words on paper. But if I allow it the opportunity, it can be something beautiful. I can learn. Maybe I hate that book. Maybe it's terrible. I didn't get anything from it that I can gain. Well, now I can learn what not to do, right? The perspective of life, I think, is what most people are searching for and can't find. They have a bad perspective for whatever reason, like we talked about. I think it's psychological. A lot of it is. Some of us need therapy for it. Some of us need to open our Bibles more. Some of us need a combination. Some of us just need to go talk to somebody about it. It's not a therapist. It's just a friend, and vent or talk to God about it. There's all kinds of opportunity to go change that perspective. But I think the faster we do it, the more we can actually enjoy life. Like the purpose of this life is to bring us joy. I'm going to study the Sabbath right now. And there's nothing in the Bible that says it has to be on Sunday, but it does say that God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. If God had to rest, why shouldn't we? Right? And when you look at the commandments, the longest commandment is the one, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. To most people, that's, I got to go to church, I got to do this. If you look at Jesus' teachings, his version of the Sabbath was to get closer to God, which was a lot of times just bringing joy into the world, right? And for those of you who are listening, maybe this is your first podcast. This is not a Christian podcast. It's just our conversation.
It's beautiful.
Because God wanted to speak through us today. And yeah, man, I think that there's so much that we can gain out of life if we just actually relax, actually rest, actually get in God's word, get closer to him. Maybe you're getting closer to him is going out and putting your feet in the grass and just, enjoying the outside and taking in his beauty. Maybe it's hanging out with your family and your kids and your grandkids. Maybe it's whatever brings us joy. God wants us to be happy. He really does. There's no part of him that says, I want you to be unhappy. There's no part of scripture that talks about being unhappy. He does say that there are going to be seasons of your life that you're not going to enjoy, but it doesn't mean that we have to be unhappy. You're just having a bad day, not a bad life.
Yeah, I just, sometimes when you're seeking or searching God and looking for him and, I know I'm looking in my way and I'm looking for answers and, I do understand, or I don't understand, but I know it says it in his word that, in his time, and with that being said, since 2012, through my search, a lot has happened and I've changed, in my opinion, to do good and walk the right way and try to follow the Lord as much as I can. But then I find myself falling and slipping because I get angry because I'm being a better person, yet nothing good is happening in my life. I had more when I was doing bad. And so I have problems understanding that. And then every once in a while, he'll bring something or something will come up in my life. And just when I thought I hit rock bottom, it goes even further down and then it goes even further. And I just like, really, God, what more do you want from me, And I said, I'm doing everything. I'm trying. And it's, like as I went to one of my men's groups one time, they had a guy come speak that believed that he can lay hands on people and stuff. And I'm watching guys walk up there and the guys, speaking in tongues or whatever, and people are falling backwards. And I'm like, really? What? Come on. And then they're like, come on, man, go on up there. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. But yet, then I saw this guy, one of the guys sitting around in the room, this guy was laying hands on somebody else, and all of a sudden, his attention went to some other guy sitting there. And he went over to him and then just started rebuking him and casting like the devil out of this guy. And I watched something crazy happen and this guy just fall on the floor and turn into a little baby and weep and cry. And it's as if this guy was truly taking spirits out of this man. And I'm watching this. I'm like, I need to get out of here. This is, and I didn't understand it, but the guy that it was happening to, he's not a real, I don't want to say not a real believer, but he was there like me searching. He doesn't know too much about the Bible like I didn't. We were learning, so it had to be real. And so finally, I didn't go up or anything, and I went home and I told my wife, I said, "Babe, you won't believe what I saw tonight." And I said, "I don't know if it's bullshit or what it is, but I don't know. I'm scared." But then I found out this guy was going to be at another church doing the same stuff at a church. The next day I said, "We got to go. I want you to see, tell me what you think." So we go up there, and at the church that was next to our town, it was like a church that spoke Spanish also. So he was doing half of it in Spanish, half of it in English while he was there. And then he had people get in line to lay hands. And I'm watching these people go up and we walk out of the aisle and the pews, and then I go a step back to let my wife go first, and then I slide back in, and people are behind her because I didn't want to go, and she's doing this to me and getting mad at me because I left her in there and that people walking her up, and then I watch her fall down, and I'm like, really, really bad, and then she's cursing at me and this and that or whatever. So anyways, the thing's over with. people outside in the lobby gathering, talking and stuff, and I see the priest in there talking to some people. So I wanted to go in there and ask him a question, because I wanted to know if he can see Jesus in my heart, if he can see, and I wanted some answers. And also there too, in the front row, there were all these little old ladies that had all the scarves over their head, all in black and stuff. And, they're praying, and they're like nuns, but they're not. But anyways, I'm sitting there talking to this priest, and he just started laying his hands on me and stuff. And he started telling me that he's breaking the chains, the curse that's on me and my family. And that's the last thing I heard, then I blacked out. Now, with everybody there, people in the lobby, they told my wife that, hey, your husband's up there, you better go. And meanwhile, this is happening. Nobody's behind me to catch me, this is coming from the story from my wife and the people that were there, what they witnessed. They said that they saw me rocking back and forth. And then that's when they said, somebody's running there before he falls, and I'm walking back and forth. And then they said I fell into the arms of the priest. And then I can hear that he says, Jesus loves you. And the curse is gone. And I didn't know what, and then as we talked about my wife after that, I'm like, I don't know what he was talking about. What curse? What is this and that? And so I went to talk to him the next day afterwards to find out what he's talking about. And one thing that happened in our lives is that our daughter, when we were in California, my daughter started running with gang members and stuff, and she got pregnant while she was 13 by an 18-year-old. And I didn't know, because I was working so much. My wife was entertaining and having his friends and all people at our house while I'm out working, but they were all gone when I wasn't there. Anyways, long story short, my daughter got pregnant at 13, and my wife comes to me and she's like, what are we going to do? And I wasn't going to let this gang member, this garbage into my family, and being raised a Catholic, I know the core values, but I'm not one that can sit here and say that, that I've gone to church enough to be able to stand on something. But the one thing I do know, that you're not supposed to have abortions. And it was the hardest thing for me, because I'm looking at my little girl. My wife says, you have to do something. And she put it all on me, because she said it's my fault that I'm not there, that she has to go out and seek attention somewhere else. And so I thought it was my fault. And I didn't want to see her ruin her life. So I made that decision, and I took her down. And I believe that was the curse.
It's a good chance, man. There's a lot of family curses that we don't even know about, too. So a couple things with that story. I don't know if you know this. I did a short-term mission in Africa. I was there for 10 days, and we actually did an altar call and did deliverance for 3 of those days. And first thing I'll say is that it's very real that there are demons walking around. I won't say walking around is probably actually the honest way, because the only way they can manifest themselves is inside the human form, is my belief. Mm-hmm. And whether it was that instance that created opened the doors for that demon, because I do believe that my wife and I are firm believers that there's no place to take a life, especially the life of an innocent infant. I do have an issue with some heinous crimes, to where I think that their judgment day should come sooner.
That's why I don't believe God can forgive me.
He can forgive you. He forgives you. Here's the thing I'll use, Anthony, because I have a hard time with forgiving. I forgive you. Even though I don't believe that that's okay. I think that you felt like it was the right decision at that time. And I know that God knows that that was not a decision you were making to seek out Him. Right? So he forgives you. I promise. You just have to ask for his forgiveness and mean it. Right? It's just like asking Jesus into your heart. You can't haphazardly just say, I believe Jesus. You can't just, but in watching that deliverance happen, I was a skeptic, dude. I was like you. I was like, this is fake. There ain't nothing real about this stuff. They know we're going to give them some money. We didn't give them any money. We didn't give them any food. We literally just had 10,000 people out worshiping.
Wow.
And, you do an altar call afterwards for 4 or 5 hours at a time, and you're just delivering people. The evangelist, likely who you saw or what he called himself, or some of that fashion, had a gift of the Spirit, which is the gift of being able to deliver and also speaking tongues. Gift of the tongue, more so in the way you can speak and lead people to Christ. We all have those gifts inside of us. God blessed us with some form of them in our lives, whether that's the ability to speak in tongues, or the ability to perform spiritual miracles. I don't know how much you listen to secular Christian music, but like Brandon Lake has a song where he talks about the fact that they had metal rods dissolve in someone's leg as someone was praying over them, and that we're created in God's image, and the first words of the Bible are God spoke into existence. We have the ability to do that, just that, because we're spoken to God's image, and that is a terrible situation, and there's so much other emotional things that happen with what you're describing. It could be, a family curse. It could be something else that happened. I mean, to point it back to any one specific event as to what that did, running with the wrong people, doing, hanging out in areas of lust where the devil likes to thrive, right, in a strip club or things like that. Like, that can open up those doors. And I'm not a complete, let's not have fun type of guy, but I have a few drinks. But we open up the opportunity for the devil to come into our heart, and when we allow that to happen, that's when demons can find their way in, because there's a void there, right? So having Christ on our heart is what stops that. One thing I can tell you from deliverance is when someone's in a demonic possession, they cannot say Jesus. And that's why I believe he's the one true God. I don't, the more I study other religions, because I think it's a good practice as a Christian.
Sure.
I used to think, everyone gets a seat at the table. Right? Everyone gets the opportunity. Okay. Right? You lived a good life. Hey, God's going to grant you the ability to go up there and have a conversation. I don't believe that anymore. I think that you have to believe that Christ is one true God. He's the Son of God. He is the Alpha, the Omega. He is the third part of the Trinity. All right. And, there are sects of Christianity that I have issue with, whether that's Mormonism. I don't have a lot of issues with Catholics. I think there's some doctrine there that I don't 100% agree with personally. But regardless, I think that there are bad in everything. And with that bad, we open up the door to our heart to the opportunity for those demons. Because if you read your Bible, a third of Christ's work was going out and casting out demons.
Correct. And
there's the same amount walking the earth today, if not more, than there was when Christ was here. I honestly believe there's a lot of the mainstream Hollywood that is in that. I mean, if you read through this Epstein crap, dude, like, there is a ton that points towards that it is just demonic. It is not okay. But either way, holding on to that, although what's done is done, is what I think Christ would have said. You cannot work back on the past. I actually go back to the illustration, and I talk about it a lot because I think it's a great offering as to what Christ actually is versus the Old Testament. He does say, "Thou shalt not kill." However, there's no sin above any other.
True.
It does not matter what that is. There's no sin above any other. So regardless of that situation, the woman at the well is probably one of my favorite interpretations, where he sat with that woman and said, you're on your fourth husband. I'm paraphrasing Christ's word, but you're on your fourth husband, and you're currently living with a man that's not. And he knew nothing about this woman, but he told her, "I forgive you. I love you. You are part of what we are. You just need to believe in me," essentially, is what he was paraphrasing back to. He didn't say those exact words, but that's just an accurate interpretation. In our world today, we like to say that adultery is like, that's just the worst thing. It's not. It's no different than anything else. I do struggle with some of the sins that people do commit.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I was struggling with people that harm children. And Christ said, if you harm a child, it's better to have a millstone wrapped around your neck and cast into a lake. No, my God was a gangster. And I don't remember that. He flipped tables in the temple, right? So I was right in that. And as I was struggling with it, it was something that I thought I had figured out, and I didn't. And I had to read my scripture to find out. And if you read scripture, man, there is nothing. You did what you felt like was best for your family in that moment, is what I'm trying to say. And although it may not be right with Anthony today, that Anthony would have probably changed nothing because he felt like he was protecting his family. If you could go back, because hindsight's always 20/20, and we always have the best vision, maybe that baby would have stayed around. Maybe you would have had a grandbaby. Because, I oftentimes run it back to, because I get into debate with a lot of people, not as much as I used to, but like about the abortion topic. Well, it's going to ruin my life. I tell you what, having a child, there's nothing about that child. Like, it may change your plans. It may not be, what you wanted. But in that moment, that's what you felt like. It was going to be this negative, instead of just saying, hey, you know what, we're going to look at the positive and say this is a gift from God. But you didn't have those teachings at that moment to do that. I don't think that God's looking down upon you for that. And quite frankly, I think that evangelist opportunity to say that Jesus loves you in your ear, that should be your inclination. And I know Jesus loves you. I love you, is because Christ, that was his way of saying, hey, I forgive you. It doesn't matter what you've done. It matters what you're going to do. Right? And you guys hear me say that a lot. I don't care about what someone's done. I care about what you're going to do. Pasts don't define us, futures do. And whatever you're going to work on is what matters. So I've appreciated our time today, man. This has been a really good podcast. I think there's a lot of valuable nuggets in here. And I hate to wrap it up because I feel like we could keep talking for another hour and a half. But
this is the most I've talked with a lot of anybody. And I want to thank you for that, because something about you and your family makes me feel at home. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, we appreciate you, man. We're glad you're here. We're thankful for you. And I'm thankful to be your brother in Christ more than anything. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can go about life with. So, hey, as I wrap this thing up, you have anything else you want to add, Anthony? Just anything we missed?
I had something to say, but I lost the thought. I will end on this. Where we both have our perspectives, where I feel guilty on my decision with that, and how we both feel strong about how people harm children and things like that. The biggest thing that I've confused with also is when I watch the St. Jude's Children's Hospital commercials and see these children suffer when they didn't do anything. And I cry. And I donate money, not much, but I do, because I that's my purpose in life. I want to be able to do something for these kids. I don't know how. I wish God would work for me. I don't think it's fair that these kids, and I don't know if there's any difference than one of these other assholes doing something to these children, I don't know. I don't understand it enough. And I don't know who to be mad at, but these kids don't deserve it, none of them. So
they don't deserve it. You're correct, but it's not our place to figure out the why.
And then that's when I see that, it helps me see that no matter what I go through, it ain't so bad.
It ain't so bad.
God bless these little kids,
Absolutely, man.
So,
well, as I wrap this thing up, guys, I think there's a lot of valuable lessons in here today. Thank you for coming to our Bible study or therapy session, however you want to word it. But either way, if you made it this far, I think there's a lot of valuable nuggets in here about life, about Christ and his teachings, and we probably got some stuff wrong. I encourage you to open up your Bible and see what God has to say to you and what he needs to put on your heart. I just want to thank Anthony for coming out today and sitting down with me, and being willing to open up. I want to thank you for listening. And as I always ask, if you got something out of the episode today, please, please, please share this with somebody that you think needs to hear this message, or maybe God's putting it on your heart to share it to them. And that goes for any of our episodes. But, as we continue to go throughout life, we can ask ourselves what went wrong or why it went wrong. But more importantly, I think you need to continue to ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. So that brings us back to our question. Keep asking yourself, what's your why?